Welcome to the High Impact Medicine podcast. High Impact Medicine is a community of doctors and medical students who are thinking about ways to lead impactful and meaningful careers. Our podcast will feature interviews and discussions, which we hope will leave you both inspired and informed. My name is Tanya Kuzmich, and today I'm speaking with Maximilian Schons. Max is a physician who worked as a clinician-scientist, developer, and entrepreneur. We discuss the importance of algorithmic thinking and designing systems that scale, the harsh realities of the world not being as open as we'd like, and the health risks that might come for pursuing a medical career. Max shares plenty of useful advice for a young physician, so I hope you enjoy listening to his story. Hey, Max.
Hey.
Good to have you on today. So, you're the Chief Medical Officer at Alvea, which is a biotech company dedicated to stopping future pandemics in their tracks. And before that, you were a clinician-scientist doing some really important work during the COVID pandemic. My question is, how did you spend your time in medical school and how did you develop your interests?
Yeah, okay. Speed running through medical school. Medical school for me was a wonderful time. I just had a lot of great friends there and learned so much about my own body that I was really excited about. It's just kind of a true adventure to get to understand what nature and your body and physics and biology is like in more depth than in high school. And I always went, I guess, deeper into stuff because I was just so intrigued by, this is really, really interesting, and hanging out with a professor afterwards and asking all sorts of questions. So I think bringing a lot of curiosity to, and genuine curiosity to lectures, asking questions, sometimes I guess to the annoyance of my peers, but always with this genuine interest of trying to understand the world and actually getting down to it rather than just repeating something that someone has written in a textbook, which I think a lot of people have the stereotype that you as a physician just have to learn a lot. But the great thing about medical school is I'd argue that that all of this stuff is connected and the system is created by nature, and so it makes sense rather than some human-made systems. So while doing these deep dives in medical school, I immersed myself into various rabbit holes there, one of which was creating a map of the human cell, which kind of started by me learning for the first part of in Germany you have different parts for medical school, and for the first big exam I learned with a map for the human cell that I was kind of dissatisfied with, and I just thought, would be so great if we would have one cell that basically prints everything that is in a biochemistry textbook on one big piece of paper that I could put next to my my desk. And I got quite obsessed with this, and over the course of roughly half a year developed this thing myself. And because I was always very interested in programming and have done website development and stuff in the past, I kind of created something which I called me-cell maps. So me-cell was the description for this mini startup that I did during medical school. And there were a bunch of Google Maps features of zooming into the cell and navigating through the cell and having all sorts of connections to Wikipedia sites so this was kind of one example of me nerding out on a particular thing. I also took a gap, not the gap year, but half a year to work at a company called Amboss, which many people, especially in Germany, will know. I built their newsletter tool back in the day. So when you get a newsletter, it might still be some code written by me there. It was 2016, I guess, when I joined them. They have their headquarters in Cologne, and I had a really good time there. And then in parallel, also I guess did a lot of EA stuff when I first encountered it in 2015 or so. Was super excited about the fact that you can combine science and altruism, two of my favorite things in the world, into one. And joined and or helped to create the local group together with a bunch of people there and run it over the course of a bunch of years. And meanwhile, being in medical school, also ran a bunch of workshops. So invited people from all over Germany to come to Cologne and talk about everything from moral ethics to AI for a whole weekend. And I think those were kind of really cool immersive experiences for people in the EA community that ended up bringing people together to co-found what is today EA Germany. And that's also, I guess, one of the side gigs during medical school that I invested quite some time in.
Mm-hmm. So loads of projects I see. And from this, how did you segue into your role as a clinician scientist?
Yeah. I mean, me being prone to doing stuff, like getting stuff done, number one, and also initiating things and doing things with computers and medicine led me to search up and down the university where the research group that is most invested in digital medicine is, and it happened to be an infectious disease group, which from an EA perspective is obviously quite cool. The professor there was, I think, very excited about me joining him after finishing med school, and so I immersed myself into the work as a clinician scientist, which is a combination of you working in clinic and spending, depending on where you start, initially some time as a researcher and then go into clinic or vice versa. I started off as a researcher and basically spent most of my time there as a researcher and didn't engage too much with the clinic, although I had a bunch of shifts and I didn't engage too much with patients during my roughly 2 years there. And the group is focused on digital infectious disease interventions, medical guideline development, antibiotic stewardship in particular, very focused on patients who suffered from infectious diseases in the context of cancer, because this is a big topic in hospitals in Germany, but also other infectious diseases such as HIV. And my work particularly was focused on antibiotic stewardship guideline development. I was programming on a tool that helped to distill information from multiple guidelines and help to bootstrap something that is called Infectiopedia, which is a crowdsourced open knowledge, public knowledge Wikipedia for infectious disease treatment that was getting the best out of the heads of roughly 70 to 80 infectious disease experts across Germany. So these things were where I started off, and then COVID happened, and our group by accident kind of became one of the leading forces in the research space in Germany on COVID, because we were the first to collect comprehensive data in hospitals across the country, and then got funding over the course of the pandemic to make a bigger iteration of our initial project, which was a questionnaire, a pretty extensive questionnaire that was filled out by clinics all across Germany, actually also in Europe and Turkey and other places. But this morphed into what is now called the National Pandemic Cohort Network, which is a structure similar to what the UK has with its recovery trial, where multiple university clinics are connected, as well as clinics to enroll patients in clinical trials, where they just can very rapidly test out new interventions, collect real-time data on what is happening during a pandemic with patients, what are the symptoms people develop, creating data for scientists to wrestle with and actually make progress on understanding this disease, including also sampling of blood and all sorts of other testing. And I think I was really, really excited and psyched about this opportunity to contribute to one of the largest COVID-19 projects, probably certainly in Germany, probably across the globe, trying to collect highest quality data on COVID-19 patients, but also building the infrastructure for Germany to be able to tackle pandemics in a way more agile way in the future.
And what kind of skills were useful to you in this role?
Obviously, you need medical background knowledge. I think it's very easy to think you can just put in every project manager that you find anywhere into this role, and they'll do your job. It's just a different thing if you have medical training and you actually are capable of answering specific questions and make design decisions that someone without your subject matter expertise wouldn't be able to. It was really helpful for me to have the background knowledge in programming and automating and building systems that scale rather than finding like locally optimal solution that in a couple of weeks' time will make us problems. Like one example of this is that the infrastructure that we build for the national, actually for our first COVID cohort and from there onwards for the National Pandemic Cohort Network was built in such a way that it was scalable to like subsequent projects that have been using many of the tools that we developed there. I think this is one of the like great things about IT, but like in general about having the foresight of seeing how whatever you're working on can be used in multiple ways. There is, I think another interesting aspect is just like getting good people to the place where you're working. So I kind of, when COVID happened, I frantically went around and was like, we need more people. And in a context of a university clinic, this is actually quite hard because you can't simply hire someone without having to jump through a bunch of loops. But yeah, we ended up hiring a couple of people that I guess I pushed for getting into our research group. And this was just a great way, number one, for having a better time because more brains are working on difficult tasks. Number two, having great colleagues. And number three, most of them were kind of EA aligned. So it's also cool to pull in friends who just want to do the most good into projects that are really ambitious and of a large scale, and getting them in contact with the reality of shaping the world. And maybe a final thing is just work a lot. You just have to, I think, especially, I mean, physicians are used to this, clinician-scientists probably more so because you are, in addition to being in clinic, you are also doing your research stuff on the side. So this is basically your life, your hobby. And I feel that being resilient enough to just continuously work over the weekend and have mechanisms to actually come to a work-life balance that gives you energizes you in your time off, while in order for you to then speed run and sprint during the time that you're actually working is another really crucial thing.
Mm-hmm. And coming out of this role, how did you navigate to find your next opportunity?
Yeah, so basically 1 year into COVID, I kind of burned out because what I just pointed to, I failed to do in terms of balancing it well. I just realized, oh my God, Max thought he can always work, and but had to realize that there's just a limit to how much you can do. And I think academic environments are very conducive to people just stressing out. If you read any of the big journals, I feel like every second week there's an article about physician burnout or healthcare workers' stress. You have to do something against it. So that was one data point. Another data point is that the academic world, or specifically university clinics, are just like really bureaucratic. I spoke to the fact of hiring being complicated. There are just like many other things that are really complicated in big bureaucracies that can annoy you quite easily over time. Like you want to get a survey running for $100 and then you have kind of to talk to the head of finance of the university in order to get this approved, which is like ridiculous in some sense. And yeah, so there I was, early 2021, being like, okay, I want to close the loop here and take some time to A, recover, B, wrap some projects up that I've been postponing for a long while that were more on the actually science-y part rather than the project management part. And from there, realign where I head next. So in, I think, February, I said I'm going to stopped working here and then worked until end of June for a couple of months finishing up all my projects, and then spent actually half a year like wrapping up in the first 2 to 3 months some academic projects I was working on, and then going to EAGs, talking to ATK, and like just networking around quite wildly and sending out applications to get a sense for, yeah, what could I do? How can I approach this? What are possibilities that are available? And while doing this, I realized the world is not as open as I would like it to be. And even for me as a privileged person with a German passport, like this almost sounds hypocritical, but I initially thought, okay, I'm just going to apply to these EA jobs that are on the 80,000 hours job board that are in the UK or in the US, and everyone will be like, yeah, come over. We just awesome that you applied. But the thing with going on job search is that unless you have a visa, it's really hard. Like having a visa is kind of a prerequisite for many jobs that you can get, and most organizations won't put in the effort to get you a visa to come to their country for you to work on projects that they are engaging with. So yeah, it was kind of sad for me to realize that a lot of the opportunities that I thought were out there weren't really there. Like I literally had 2 or 3 organizations that were like, we'd be really excited to have you, but we won't get a visa for you. And specifically for situations where you are not like particularly super matching to what they are looking for, like any sorts of operations roles that are more general, and project management to some degree is also more of a like general thing. It's going to be hard for you to get in. So I was on the hunt there, and then after being rejected too many times, I thought, okay, well then I'd do my own thing, and reached out to OpenPhil, and they had this program at the time at the end of last year on like basically some sort of early career funding that they give you to engage in projects, and I came up with a project proposal on doing research that leads towards an organization on personal protective equipment that I got a lot of help with from a bunch of people in the EA community and elsewhere. And kind of in parallel, I very serendipitously ended up talking to Ethan Alley, who has been also a long-term veteran in the biosecurity world in Effective Altruism. And we never spoke before, and we happened to talk like the day where they started to have a hackathon on creating a vaccine for Omicron, because back in December 2021, Omicron was lurking there and no one knew what was happening, and everyone realized that in low and middle income countries, 10% of people are vaccinated and no one really will put in effort to get vaccines out there. What can we do to make a difference? And initially I was like, okay, yeah, do your hackathon. I'm focused on my project proposal here that I need to get done. But then after some considerations, I was like, okay, well, sometimes you just have to jump on a train and without knowing where it actually goes. And so I spent a week of my December prior to Christmas working on how to set up a clinical trial for a Omicron vaccine that we might want to produce. I think the fact that I've been working as a clinician-scientist and thereby been part of clinical trials before in the university, which is something I didn't talk about, but I like participated in over 10 clinical trials that where you go to patients and do the informed consent process with them. And this was kind of like my superpower joining the hackathon team. And yeah, so we did that. Yeah, we did the hackathon. I submitted my proposal to OpenPhil, But then on January 3rd, I got a call. We're actually going to start an organization called Alvea that is going to produce an Omicron vaccines. Are you in? And I was like, okay, I'm not going to get to Boston because I don't have a visa. Does it still work? And then they were like, yeah, we make it happen. And ever since, I'm part of this wonderful organization.
That is an amazing story. Could you share any of the updates about the work that's been happening in Alvea and the things you've managed to produce?
Yeah, I think our really good summaries of this, where our CEOs have been talking at EAGs, most recently in San Francisco, about us raising money to actually aim to create a Omicron vaccine that has been tested in clinical trials. And I mean, we created something there in lightning speed. When I initially heard the proposal, we're going to build a vaccine and test it in humans within a matter of months, I was like, this is insane. Drug development takes years and years and years. And especially with this organization of people who are new to the field, this is just insanely ambitious. But we actually did the thing. We produced a vaccine, or we designed it, we produced it, we tested it, we submitted an application, we got a clinical trial started, and are in the process of iterating on this. And it's a lot of exciting stuff that is happening behind the scenes, and I'm tap dancing to work every day, although I'm not really going on a walk because I'm working from the home office. But the general spirit is that of just being insanely grateful and excited about the work that we are doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, the benefit of working from home is that you can tap dance all the way to work.
Yeah. To my desk, to my standing desk, and enjoy that. Yeah.
That works. I really liked that you shared how difficult it was to actually get a job. What would you, in hindsight, recommend that medical graduates do to stand out when they give applications to these sort of non-traditional roles?
Yeah. I think number one is network. It's just always easier to get in if people know you and have an intuition for what it's like to be working with you, or they can talk to someone they trust who has worked with you. So I noticed that I had just way easier time whenever people had interfaced with me in the past, and that it was just some rapport between me and the person looking to hire someone. And this definitely would have allowed me to get into way more senior roles, because people just knew, okay, Max is a competent human and we can trust him to do difficult, challenging things. In terms of highlighting what you as a medical graduate have, I believe, obviously everyone has the experience, or has the certificate of being a physician, which in itself gives you the privilege to do some things that other people won't be able to. All the stuff that is about patient safety at Alvea is something that is exclusive to physicians, because other people can't judge this. But if you want to separate yourself from within this crowd, I think the question is, what are the interesting additional projects that you've been working on? Number one. And also, how do you present yourselves, and how do you make yourself interesting across a ton of applications that people see, or that hiring managers see? And I guess having interesting side hustles, as I pointed out earlier, showing that you have this proactive mindset of not waiting for a problem or waiting for someone to give you a problem, but just seeing so many things that you can stick your head into and work on them is really important. I mean, obviously, it's also great to have, 95th percentile grades and awards and all these things. But in terms of, I'd argue, EA jobs, I would definitely encourage people to focus more on the networking part and getting engaged into the community, rather than trying to optimize for really, really good grades at your university.
Did you ever want to be a physician? Like what brought you to medical school?
Yeah. Background story is Max wanted to become really good at playing piano because that's just a thing that I loved to do back in the day. Then Max hurt himself and got kind of, by playing too much piano, wrist injuries, and had to sit there for a couple of months recovering from this, and thereby discovered, I've never actually have had this before, that I couldn't do what I want to do because my body didn't want it to do. So let's try to dig into this. And I ended up reading a lot about medicine, and I was very intrigued. Oh, this is just like fascinating. I think I want to do this, and I want to learn more about it. Like very arbitrary, I don't know, 18-year-old Max just making this decision to how to spend the next 6 years. Definitely not recommended. Definitely prior to Max engaging with any effective altruism parts, and not the typical type of deliberation I guess you'd see nowadays from me. But as I said, I really enjoyed medical school, and I also love the way that we as physicians have this super unique relationship to other humans, and also help individuals. I mean, this is just, I guess, kind of almost hacking the human brain. Like the amount of appreciation, gratitude, all the stuff that you get is just like exactly what I guess effective altruists are pointing to. Yeah, you have to be careful to not fall into this trap because there are other things that you can be doing. And it's just so appealing and so fascinating to work with patients, also problem solve these puzzles, these really interesting cases. It's so fun, and I really loved it when I spent time in the clinic trying to help to make a difference for this one particular patient. And I still to this day love to do like physical exams, and still am very eager to help people when any issues come up, in like health related issues. But in terms of having the biggest impact in the world, I just at one point made the decision that I have to close this door, because otherwise, like kind of burning this bridge, because otherwise I'll always will be tempted to like go back, and maybe I should go to the clinic, or because it's just such an interesting and fulfilling job. And I just decided at one point that I want to focus on other things than like direct work with patients, because I think I get more fulfillment in this over the course of my life, and also specifically will do more good. And in the end, this is something I prioritize beyond this like instant gratification that I would get from working in the hospital. And like one thing on the like opposite of this is working in a hospital is just like a nightmare. Like let's be honest about it. You do night shifts. Your bosses are incompetent. They like are really bad managers. You have to do work where you're like, why on earth do I have to study medicine for, I don't know, 6, 7, whatever, many years, and still am the person responsible for drawing blood or other things. And I feel sometimes you are not a physician, but some sort of health secretary type of person calling after other people who are not able to get their documents together. And this is just like not fun. And a big part of also my decision for myself to take care of myself is not like going into the hospital, because hospitals don't care. You're just like a number. You're just like a resource that they put into some floor, and then you have to solve whatever is coming in there. And I mean, fun story. I at one point discussed with someone who was very upset that their brother intended to go to the military, and was like, oh my God, like how can they do this? This is just like putting their life on risk. They might get post-traumatic stress disorder. There are just like so many reasons why you wouldn't want to go to the military. And then I was like, yeah, that might be true. I think I want to compare this to medicine. Let's just compare like what are the odds of you actually suffering from something in the military compared to being a doctor in Germany. And it turns out, like from all academics and like actually like almost every group of professionals that you can look at, physicians are the ones who have the highest rate of divorce, highest drug abuse, highest burnout rates. Like it turned out actually like the concern that this person had for her brother was something where like it should be inverted. Like her brother should be concerned about her going into medicine because it's like more likely that she'll be suffering from like some side effect of this profession than he'd be from being in the military. So yeah, those 2 points, I guess, personal well-being and how to do the most good in the world drove me away from the direct patient interaction, but still something that I applaud like all the physicians in the world for doing it. And in a parallel universe, Max would definitely also be doing this, where all the other big problems have been solved.
Yeah. Something I wanted to touch on and ask you about is how did you build this mindset of thinking in systems and getting an understanding for how things scale?
Yeah, good question. So one of my basic recommendations that I share with most people is you should speak one programming language. I think it's more important to know like the concepts of how computers work and how like algorithmic procedures can scale rather than learning whatever Spanish, Portuguese, or French in addition to whatever other languages you're learning. I think on the margin, people are underestimating how valuable it is to have this tool, being trained to look at problems with the mindset of an engineer, like specifically like computer engineer, and see how you can deconstruct problems and into their components and how these components can interact with each other in a way that even if you scale this up by whatever, you still don't run into problems. You obviously have to combine this with a pragmatic mindset of you don't want to build a perfect system that can like handle infinite amount of users or whatever. And building this is just going to be so cost intensive that you never end up actually shipping the product. So there's this trade-off between being pragmatic and being a perfectionist that builds perfect system that scale brilliantly. But yeah, as a specific recommendation, like I think everyone who doesn't know how the internet works, everyone who doesn't know how basic programming works, how a computer can, or how computer servers are like able to just communicate with databases and run like complicated algorithms. I think this is just a really, really big missed opportunity in your mental tool belt for tackling problems. And this doesn't mean that you have to be like a computer engineer at all, but it has to be I know when to ask someone to help me with a specific problem, and I'm like basically able to communicate with them on a basic level, like similarly to me putting you into a random place where you're not able to speak the language, but you might want to learn the language to the degree that you're able to communicate very basic needs and can get around. And I think this is the level of proficiency that everyone should be aiming for when thinking about this scalable systems.
Are there any other resources or ideas that you'd like to share with people?
Yeah. So let's see. I feel a bunch of things, some of which I also haven't mentioned yet. I touched on the networking a lot. As I said, just by networking, I ended up where I am right now, and there wasn't a job offer for my role at all. And many organizations also don't have job offers for what they're hiring for specifically. So talking to people and being on their radar is really important. If you want to learn how to program or get your hands dirty, there are just like online courses that you should spend like 1 month of your life on, and then you're probably proficient enough. Check out whatever feels suitable to you. You should really try to find, for your first job specifically, amazing senior people that are just kicking ass really hard, and just by pure osmosis, you'll be able to become a more effective person and leader, I am super, super grateful for my first boss and his, just being around him and observing how he interacted with others and solved problems was amazing. I also encourage you to think about work-life balance and accept that you will have to say no to things, and that you can't dance on all the places in the world, and you have to burn some bridges, such as I did with me basically deciding against any clinical work. And like very practically, I still recommend that even if you're not working as a physician in clinic, like keeping up to date with the science and keeping up to date with science in general, and having a routine of every week reading the New England Journal, or like at least skimming it and see whether there's something interesting in there. Every week reading the Science magazine and see whether there's something interesting in there is just, I think, what will make you over time a more scientific-driven individual, which I'd argue we all want to be. And like a final, very tiny hack that I just love is using some sort of space repetition software as your second brain. I mean, many of you probably will be familiar with Anki, which is like the standard tool for pressing knowledge into your brain of medical school. And I'm using Anki for all sorts of things these days, from prompts that I have that are relevant in management and project management, feedback, things that I want to have in my brain rotating every now and then, and also scientific concepts from programming to statistics to whatever, and make this kind of my second knowledge base. So those are like a bunch of things that I'd be proposing as a buffet for young professionals.
Who doesn't love a good buffet? Max, it was a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you for your time.
I'm very happy with having been here, and hope that we did some goodness today.